The Stanley Cup playoffs are about to get underway. What are the storylines in each series? We'll find out with some of our local experts and discuss it all right now on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL. We're available 7 days a week, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He is Shukri Wrights, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast. Together, we're bringing you all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL. But Shu, there were no games on Friday. It is the calm before the storm as the Stanley Cup playoffs are about to get underway.
It is the night before what many people believe and hope will be a long school trip out to the mountaintop called Mount Stanley Cup. And the next morning is where everyone congregates for the 16 teams. And Eddie, I need it now. I need it now. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Let's get into it then. On today's show, we are going to preview all of the 8 matchups with the help of our local experts. We've got 11 teams back in the playoffs from a year ago. 5 new teams are in: Senators, Canadiens, Wild, Blues, and Devils. For the first time ever, all of the 4 U.S.-based original 6 teams are out: Bruins, Rangers, Blackhawks, and Red Wings. Boston and New York did not make it back in the playoffs from a year ago, along with Vancouver and the New York Islanders. But let's get into it. We start in the order in which the series are going to start, and our first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year will be the Blues at the Jets. Game 1, 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. The Jets winning the President's Trophy. Can they break that curse? Let's get a report on this game from one of our local experts, the host of Locked On Jets.
It's finally time for Jets versus Blues, a rematch of the 2019 series between two teams that very rarely face each other in the playoffs, but have some real bad blood after the Blues ended up embarrassing the Jets and moving on to the Cup Finals. Winnipeg wants to reauthor their own narrative and come out with a big win. I'm Harrison Lee from Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And obviously for us, all of us watching, this is going to be a huge series. The Jets are wanting to rewrite their own playoff destiny and prove that playoff hockey is also meant for them. But for Hellebuyck, this might be an even bigger moment. His first playoff series since the embarrassing loss to the Avs last year was not his fault. The Jets were just very bad. But for him personally, I know that he'll feel a level of responsibility. So a huge moment, a tough opponent in the first round, both teams dealing with some injury issues. Follow along at Locked On Winnipeg Jets and Locked On Blues throughout the series to see how it ends.
And thanks to Harrison Lee, your host of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, for that report. Winnipeg won the season series 3-1. They won their first ever Central Division title, their first ever President's Trophy, but it's all about playoff success. They've been out in the first round for the last 5 playoff appearances. You don't believe in the Jets. You don't think it's going to be different. But are they good enough to at least win this first round series against St. Louis?
There is no question in my mind that they're good enough to win the first round series against the St. Louis Blues. But the Winnipeg Jets, if they are going to win this series, I'm going to start off with the obvious, and it's going to start with Connor Hellebuyck. Because there's no question in my mind that Connor Hellebuyck is going to win the Vezina Trophy this season. But the reality is that when you look at what he's done in the postseason since getting to the Western Conference Finals in 2018, it has been bad. Hellebuyck has gone 9-19 since getting to the Western Conference Finals in 2018 with a 3.13 goals against average and a 905 save percentage in 28 playoff games since then. So if Winnipeg is going to right the ship and change the narrative in terms of their ability to make a prolonged playoff run, they're going to need Connor Hellebuyck to start huge and keep the momentum going in the right direction. And as well as I think that it's going to also be important for your big guns to show up offensively. I need to see Kyle Connor to step up huge for the Winnipeg Jets in terms of getting things going in the right direction. And lastly, in terms of the St. Louis Blues perspective, what a time for Robert Thomas to be hot. I mean, he ended the regular season with a 12-game point streak for 4 goals and 21 assists. You need him to continue that, especially in this first-round matchup against the Winnipeg Jets.
Doesn't look like Dylan Holloway will be able to start the series. He was second in goals, third in points for St. Louis, so that hurts. Jordan Kyrou needs to be big as well. But Jim Montgomery takes over, does a great job. They win 12 in a row and scratch and claw their way into the playoffs. I don't think they've got enough, though, to take down the Winnipeg Jets. And I think the Jets understand, even though they've accomplished so many things this regular season, it really doesn't mean anything if they don't at least win a round in the playoffs. I think they're ready to do it. I'm going to pick the Jets in 6.
I am going to go with the Winnipeg Jets in 6 as well. And my reason is because I do think that in this playoff round, they will be tested against the St. Louis Blues, because this St. Louis Blues, they're going to present a pretty good matchup in terms of what they bring, in terms of the intangibles, in terms of being a physical group, and as well as the physicality, and as well as the penalty killer, which needs to be improved upon. So I think the Jets are going to exploit that in terms of their power play, exploiting the Blues' weakness, which is the penalty kill. So I go Jets in 6.
Up next, Avalanche at Stars, Game 1, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. And about a month ago, I thought this was the first-round matchup series to watch. Now, not so much. You got the Mikko Rantanen subplot going against his old team, 2 big contenders in the West, but Dallas is on a 7-game losing skid as they go in the playoffs, and they just got word Jason Robertson, their leading scorer, is out for the start of this series. I don't know how they flip the switch and turn it on against an Avalanche team that is loaded and ready to go, led by Nathan MacKinnon, Hart Trophy candidate, led by Cale Makar, likely Norris Trophy winner, and Gabriel Landeskog back as well for an emotional lift. I thought this was going to be a great series. This one might be over quickly.
I don't think it's over quickly, but I do think this series is going to go 7 games.
Oh.
But before I give you my official prediction for this series, the reason why I think it's going to be a 7-game series is because, number one, I do think that the Stars they're going to be tested and tested often. They're going to need Mikko Rantanen to play against the Colorado Avalanche the same way that he did when he was a Colorado Avalanche. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the Colorado Avalanche perspective, Gabriel Landeskog has not played in an NHL game since Game 6 of 2022 Stanley Cup Finals. That was a clincher game for the Avalanche when they won their 3rd Stanley Cup. You wonder about the rest versus rust factor. Obviously, he's coming off a major injury. So I wonder how will he fare, and as well as the obvious in terms of you need Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon to shine as well. But the big black case in this series, in my opinion, I think is certainly going to be Jake Ottinger. And you're going to need Jake Ottinger to really step up huge against his Avalanche team that has got threats up and down this entire lineup. So I think this is going to go 7 games, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a well-played series.
Well, you think it's going to go longer than I do, because I think Dallas is in a lot of trouble. I just can't see them flipping the switch. They've got the injury issues. Jason Robertson out, Miro Heiskanen not coming back. I've got Colorado in 5.
5? I mean, you're a generous man. I was willing to go 7.
I think you're a generous man by giving them
by
thinking Dallas is going to take it that far.
Listen, I think it's going to go 7 games. And the reason is because ultimately, I think what it will boil down to is this. Which power play is going to be more efficient and more effective in this series? Colorado. Also, the defense. I think Dallas not having their number one defenseman, Miro Heiskanen, massive loss. And I wonder how is Thomas Hartley going to be able to pick up the side. He's played more minutes since Heiskanen went down. So I wonder about Dallas, but I do think Dallas, because of their offense, they will be able to steal a couple of games along with the play of Jake Ottinger. But I do got Colorado winning this series in 7 games.
All right. Well, we both got the winner. We both just think it's going to last a little bit longer and a little bit shorter.
Of course.
We have the Devils taking on the Hurricanes. Game 1, 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Season series was tied at 2 games apiece. Not a lot of drama for either of these teams. We knew it was going to be Devils Hurricanes for a couple of months, it seemed like. Let's get a report on this one from both sides. We start with the host of Locked On Hurricanes.
Game 1 for the Carolina Hurricanes is on Easter Sunday at 3 p.m. as they start their first round matchup against the New Jersey Devils. Should definitely be An interesting one, especially with the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes are 8th in goals for and goals against. Number 1 PK unit in the entire National Hockey League. It should be interesting how their power play is going to do. But if you're looking at potential X factors in this series, don't overlook Seth Jarvis, who had a really great season for the Carolina Hurricanes, leading the team in goals and had a new career high in assists and tied his point total from last year. Also, watch out for Jackson Blake, a really great rookie season, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about. 17 goals, 17 assists. And I think also you got to look at the depth of the Carolina Hurricanes. Career years from Eric Robinson, Jack Roslovic, Mark Jankowski's come on really strong, and Taylor Hall's almost getting back to somewhere near his Boston Bruins levels of play as well. Look on the defense. I mean, Jacob Slavin, best defensive defenseman in the NHL. Jalen Chaffield's been playing really well. Look out for, Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker, who've been playing really well too. And, how's the goaltending going to be? Should be interesting to see how that works out. And, with the Carolina Hurricanes, like I said, this is a team that's really good on the 5-on-5 play. How are special teams going to play on it too? And for the Hurricanes, their road record wasn't really that great this season. So how are they going to do on the road? Because I've said on Locked On Hurricanes a lot. What are the two things that you need to do in the playoffs really well? Have good special teams, mainly the power play, and can you win on the road? So it should be interesting. If you had to ask me what my prediction is for the series for the Carolina Hurricanes against the New Jersey Devils, well, give me Canes in 5.
And that was Zach Martin, the host of Locked On Hurricanes. 7 straight years in the playoffs for Carolina under Ron Brindamore. 7 straight years they have won their first round series. For the other side of this, let's check in with our local expert, the host of Locked On Devils.
What's up? Trent Matthews of Locked On Devils here, and here are my quick thoughts heading into Game 1 of the first round. The New Jersey Devils enter that matchup as underdogs due to the fact that they're missing some key guys, including their best player, Jack Hughes. It's going to come down to physicality and goaltending because it's always a physical matchup when they play the Hurricanes. That's why they brought people like Stefan Nason, Paul Cotter, Brendan Dillon aboard. Jacob Markstrom, he has to be on his A game. Depth will also be essential. Eric Holla, Dawson Mercer, they've been improving their games as the season has progressed. It's going to be an all-hands-on-deck effort for the Devils, who once again are underdogs, and not only that, they don't have home ice advantage. So if all goes right, maybe they can squeak it out in 7. Have my doubts, but those are my thoughts heading into Game 1.
All right, and thanks to Trey Martin, the host of, Trey Matthews, the host of Locked On Hurricanes, for helping us out with that. I don't like to pick sweeps in the first round, and I'm not picking a sweep in this one. However, if there was one matchup where I thought we could see a sweep, it would probably be this one.
I disagree. And I'm not going to disagree just for the sake of being a contrarian, but the reason why I don't think it will be a clean sweep is because I do think that that even though the Devils, they certainly have their work cut out, I don't think it'll be a clean sweep. But I do have question marks in terms of the Devils side of things. Because number one, Jacob Markstrom, yes, he was acquired in the trade from the Calgary Flames last June, and he did put up solid numbers in his first season with the Devils in 49 games and so forth. But I know they also added toughness. And their toughness is going to be tested during this series because of the fact of who they're going up against. You talked about of Jacob Slavin, most notably, like Eric Stahl, like those guys that like to play a heavy game, a physical game. But the Devils, what they're going to need more than anything else is guys like Stefan Notion and as well as Brendan Dillon to step up huge in terms of not just the physicality, but you also, in terms of the New Jersey Devils, the biggest question mark for me after Markstrom's performance in goal is how big and how important will Jesper Bratt be in terms of the offensive production, and how much can he pick up in the absence of Jack Hughes, who's missing the rest of the season with the injury?
I don't think it lasts long. I got Carolina in 5.
I was going to go Carolina in 6, but the more I think about it, I kind of want to say 4, but I'm going to go with 6. I'm going to go with 6. I'm going to go.
He's picking 6. Coming up next, we've got the Battle of Ontario, an under-the-radar matchup in Sin City, and the top team in the East looking to survive without their number one goalie. It's all next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Pass, Ultimate Game Pass with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. And it's easy as you streaming your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I'm old enough to remember when video games first started. I still love playing video games, although I'm not very good at them anymore. But head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Again, that's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we are continuing to look at the Stanley Cup playoffs and the opener coming up Sunday, Game 1, Battle of Ontario, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It is the Senators against the man, the team that the man to my right or left, depending on how you're watching this, picked to win it all. That would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Senators back in the playoffs after a 7-year drought and a provincial rivalry going at it in this one. Should be fun. Let's get a report on this one from one of the hosts of Locked On Senators.
Is almost over. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators, and for the first time in 21 years, the Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs will meet for a best-of-7 playoff series. We've been covering this all week long on Locked On Senators, breaking down storylines, key players, and statistics, one of which is who scores first. Both the Senators and the Leafs are top 4 in the league this season when scoring the first goal. We'll also get into all sorts of key matchups, like the one between Shane Pinto and the shutdown line of the Sens against Austin Matthews and the high-flying Maple Leafs power. So, we know the history. Ottawa has a lot of young players in the playoffs for the first time, while Toronto's core has only got past the first round once in 8 playoff appearances consecutively. So which one will reign supreme? Is it the scrappy underdogs or the Leafs' big guns? For more on the series, check us out at Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Thanks to Ross the Man Levitan, one of the co-hosts of the Locked On Senators show. Hi there. Ottawa won the season series 3-0, Shu. All the pressure's on the Leafs. But I don't know if Ottawa has enough against that powerful Toronto lineup.
I don't think they do, but I think it'll be a compelling series either way, especially given that they haven't met in the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2004. Now, what I will say is this, though, in terms of the Maple Leafs and why I have been so, bullish, if you will, on the Maple Leafs winning this series, is because I do think that you're going to see a motivated Mitch Marner in terms of showing up. I think you're going to see like guys like William Nylander also stepping up huge during this series, but not to take anything away from the Ottawa Senators, which it has been a tremendous story and whatnot. But I do think that ultimately what's going to boil down to, for me at least, is the play of Morgan Riley and as well as Brandon Carlo, who was a deadline acquisition for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think that defensively, if they're able to continue to play a solid type of brand of hockey that they have played this year, which has been a remarkable improvement under Craig Berube, I think that the Maple Leafs certainly should, in fact, win this series handily.
I think this could be a really fun series, especially if it goes deep and the drama and the pressure mounts on Toronto. But I think the Leafs are just too strong. I've got Toronto in 6.
I'm going for 7 because I like drama. Give me drama, please. Like, what better way to get first round drama than 7-game first round series? And by the way, Eddie, side note, I'm starting to feel like this is probably the best first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in quite some time, if not ever.
Let's move on to a kind of under the radar series out west. Wild taking on the Golden Knights. Game 1, 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday in Las Vegas. Let's get a report on this one from one of our local experts, the host of Locked On Wild, checking in on this one.
Wild are back in the postseason in 2024-2025, heading to Sin City to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. Hey everybody, Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, taking a look at the matchup in round one between the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Minnesota Wilds put a fully healthy lineup on the ice against Anaheim for the first time since November 11th. So the Wild getting healthy at the right time. The biggest key in this series for me is, can their offense match the Golden Knights? The goalie matchup is a pretty tantalizing one between Adin Hill and Philip Gustafsson. I feel like that's pretty even. Minnesota Wild have a great defense. Vegas Golden Knights have a great defense. The offense for the Minnesota Wild is going to be under the spotlight in this one because it turns out Vegas can score the puck pretty efficiently with names like Jack Eichel and Mark Stone. So can Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, and Matt Zuccarello get it done for the Wilds? Make sure to tune into Locked On Wild to find out as the series unfolds.
And thanks to Seth Topal for that report on Locked On Wild. Vegas won the season series 3-0, 110 points on the year for Vegas, but nobody really talking about them too much. Minnesota getting a couple of huge players back, Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson at the end of the season. That's going to be huge for them. What are your thoughts, though, on this series?
I think that this is going to be an interesting series because of the fact that that Vegas has been the most disrespected team in the league in terms of like a team that can come out of the Western Conference. And I just think that for Vegas, this is going to be an important series for them to set the tone. And I think that despite that, the Minnesota Wild are getting healthier and so forth with Joel Eriksson coming back and Kirill Kaprizov coming back as well. I think we're all about to get a national view of Matt Boldy in terms of him performing at a new level this year, but this time doing it in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. So I do think that Vegas has got their work cut out, but I also do believe that Vegas ultimately, they are the better team. I think defensively they're just stronger. In terms of their decor, they're just bigger in terms of size and in terms of their brand of hockey, and as well as I really just like their overall makeup with this team, especially with Jack Eichel, and as well as Alex Pietrangelo and Ivan Barbashev as well. So ultimately, Vegas, I expect them to win this series, but I do think it's going to be interesting to see how Adin Hill takes over the series.
I'm picking Vegas in 6. What's your pick?
I'm going to go Vegas in 5. Only for the mere fact that I think offensively they're just more deeper than the Minnesota Wild are.
All right, we got to check on the top team in the East. Will the fourth time be the charm for LA and a first-round battle in the Sunshine State that may decide who comes out of the East? That's next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute NHL showdown or soaking in the excitement of the NBA playoffs. But finding great seats at a great price used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you can see the total up front. No surprises at checkout. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. And with the seat before you buy view, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guaranteed, you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guaranteed means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Shu, let's check in on our next matchup, Canadiens Capitals. Game 1 coming up 7 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. Washington won 2 of the 3 meetings. The Caps do have some injury issues. Let's get a report on this one from one of our local experts, the host of Locked On Capitals.
The Capitals prepare to take on the Canadiens as the playoffs start on Monday. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Capitals are hoping for a better result than the last time they faced the Habs in the playoffs back in 2010. Interesting storylines is the status of Logan Thompson, who put up 31-6-6 record, signed that big contract, but has missed a substantial amount of time. Is Charlie Lindgren and Clay Stevenson, is that tandem going to be good enough to beat the Canadiens? Alex Ovechkin has the remainder of this year and next year under contract. It would be nice for him to win one more Stanley Cup while he is here. Alexei Protas, who has put up 30 goals this season, where are they going to get that goal-scoring power from? And Ryan Leonard, the first-round pick, 8th overall, who put up 30 goals for Boston College, has left a bit to be desired for the Capitals this season. I think we're going to need to see an engaged Ryan Leonard to help win against this young, scrappy Habs team.
All right, for the other side, let us check in with our
Folks,
host
it's
from
Laura
Locked On
from Locked On
Canadiens.
Canadiens here with your very quick playoff preview for the Montreal Canadiens. I think it helps most if we look at this as school for the Canadiens. They were never expected to be here. It's early in their rebuild. They've outperformed expectations. So now it's time to look at what can they get out of this playoff series, and do they have any hope of winning it? Never say die. You know, the postseason is always a brand new season. The Canadiens have a lot of unanswered questions, though, including can they fix their power play in time? They're going to be playing one of the best teams in the league, but as we've seen over the course of this season, they've found ways to beat the best teams in the league. So you never want to count them out, but you do have to remember that most of the players, as well as the coach, are inexperienced in this milieu. So as we're playing with house money right now, I think the biggest opportunities for the Canadiens now are growth that they're going to carry into the future years. We'll have our full preview with Locked On Capitals on Locked On Canadiens, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Check us out.
All right, thanks to Dan Holme from Locked On Capitals and Laura Saba from Locked On Canadiens. Shu, what are your thoughts on Canadiens Capitals?
I think it's going to be really interesting, and I like what was said in terms of the Canadiens' perspective. In terms of, for them, this is going to be school. Like they were not expected to be in the postseason, which is true. But now that they're here, what I am most excited about in terms of this series is the matchup between Alex Ovechkin and as well as the Montreal Canadiens captain Nick Suzuki, who has been absolutely huge for the Montreal Canadiens coming down the stretch. But ultimately, I do think that the Capitals, like their skill and the way that they really have come together since day one of the season is going to be too much to handle for the Montreal Canadiens. I do think that Alex Ovechkin will be a factor in this series, but as well as not to be forgotten about Dylan Strome as well. And I do think that it's going to be really interesting to see how ultimately it all shakes out, but especially in terms of like the goaltending situation as well.
Yeah, I am very concerned about Logan Thompson not being there for the Capitals. I think they can get by with Charlie Lindgren in the first round. I don't know that they're going to go very deep in the playoffs if Logan Thompson isn't available for them, but we'll worry about that later. As far as this series, I got Caps in 6.
I got Caps in 6 as well. Ultimately, I think that, listen, Montreal has been a terrific story, and it's been wonderful seeing them back in the playoffs. But I do think that the Washington, with the year that they have had, and as well as just the strengths of this team, I think they'll ultimately win it in 6.
Up next, we've got Kings Oilers, game 1, 10 p.m. Eastern on Monday. 4th straight year, it's LA against Edmonton. Last time that happened, it was your Bruins taking on the Montreal Canadiens in the 80s. Edmonton's won the last 3 series. This is the only first-round matchup in the West that is a series that we saw a year ago. Let's get a report on this game from one of our local experts, the host of Locked On LA Kings. Oh, wait, that's me. The Kings won the season series 3-1, but no Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl in those last 2 meetings, so you can kind of throw them out. This is the one thing that's different about this series. LA finally has home ice advantage. They were one of the best teams, if not the best team, on home ice this year. They have the better goaltending by far with Darcy Kemper. I think they're certainly the better defensive team. I think they've got more depth than the Oilers. But, of course, the thing the Oilers have is 2 of the greatest players in the game, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Can they make enough key plays at key moments to win this series for Edmonton? And can their power play be as dominant as it has been in these past series? It's one thing that the Kings have to do a better job against. I will let you give your take on this and make your prediction first before I give my biased prediction on Kings and Oilers.
And you know what's funny? When I was like just thinking about the series earlier, because I was like, well, this is part 4 of like a 4-part movie like The Godfather, so to speak. Except that at some point, the underdog has its day, and I think now the Kings are in that position where I do believe that having offensive depth comes to be really handy, especially come the playoff time. And here we are, and I think that one of the things that's going to stand out to me in terms of the Kings ultimately is the play of Quentin Byfield, and as well as seeing like the other guys like continue like to step up, Adrian Kempe, Andre Kopitar. But I do think that also defenseman Drew Dodd is going to have his hands full against, Connor McDavid, and as well as like Leon Draisaitl as well. But them losing Matthias Ekholm, the Oilers, that is, in the first round at least, is definitely going to be a big blow. But I do think that because of the Kings' depth in terms of their ability to have goal scorers in every line, I think that's going to play huge in this series against Edmonton.
I've got Kings in 6.
I've got Kings in 6 as well.
I like it. I hope it happens. We'll see. We didn't save the best for last. The NHL did. The final series to get underway, Panthers Lightning, game 1, 8:30 Eastern on Tuesday. 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup winners coming from the Sunshine State. Tampa Bay's won it twice. Of course, Florida won it last year. If you're going to watch one series in the playoffs, this is it. Let's get a report from one of our local experts, the host of Locked On Lightning.
Josh Sperber here from Locked On Lightning. And I think for me, the biggest key for Tampa in the postseason is, can they win on the road? The Lightning have one of the best home records in the NHL this season with 29 victories at Amalie Arena. But on the road has been a different story. They're one of just 4 playoff teams with a losing record on the road. And despite the fact that the Bolts have home ice advantage against the Florida Panthers in the first round of the postseason, they're bound to run into some team that has a better record than they do. So if they can't win on the road, they're not going to be able to win playoff series. Though I do think the Lightning have put themselves in a great position. Andrei Vasilevsky has been well deserving of the Vezina Trophy, and I do believe Nikita Kucherov should be the Hart Trophy winner. But there's also a question of how well the Lightning can sustain their offense with younger players like Gage Gonzalez and Connor Geekie coming in for the injured Oliver Bjorkstrand. Though I think Gonzalez could be an X factor for Tampa in the postseason, Bjorkstrand is a proven player with some playoff experience, and it is unknown if or when he's going to return for the playoffs. So if the Lightning can overcome their road woes and have some players step up in the wake of a few key injuries, then they could be a force to be reckoned with in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
All right, thanks to Josh Sperber, the host of Locked On Lightning, for that report. Tampa Bay's loaded. They've got so much offense. He mentioned Nikita Kucherov. Obviously, they also have Andrei Vasilevsky back there in net. This is a very experienced team, but they take on a Florida team that the big knock on them for me is being banged up going into the playoffs. Matthew Tkachuk hasn't played in a while. Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad going to miss the first couple of games because of a suspension. Maybe that's the difference in the series. I know you don't have we know who you're picking to come out of the East. I think the winner of this series makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals out of the East. So we know a very, very good team is going to lose in round number 1. I've got Tampa Bay winning this series and going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. What do you say?
I am going to go with the Florida Panthers to win this series in 7 games. Because listen, like prior to right now, the last 5 seasons, the Stanley Cup Finals has had a representation coming out of the state of Florida, either Tampa Bay or the Florida Panthers. And I just think that this year, and it's a shame because one of these 2 teams is going to have to go home, but that's the nature of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But in terms of like which team I ultimately think that is going to come out of this particular round, I think it's going to be Florida, and I think it's going to be because you're gonna have potentially a healthy Matthew Tkachuk, who is a difference maker in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and as well as Aaron Ekblad, who is going to miss the first 2 games to complete his 20-game suspension. But I do like the Panthers to win this series ultimately because of playoff Bob, Sergei Bobrovsky. We've seen in the last couple of years how he has come up huge for the Panthers in their back-to-back runs to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I don't think this is going to be any different.
It should be a hell of a series. I think it goes 7 as well. I've got Tampa. You got Florida. In the end, yep. I say the Lightning beat the Avalanche for the Stanley Cup championship. We know you think Toronto is going to win it all. Who are they going to meet out of the West in the final?
I'm going to go Vegas versus Toronto in this 2025 Stanley Cup Finals. Toronto in 6 games. That is my official prediction.
And I'll pick Tampa Bay in 6 over Colorado. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. You got a taste of some of our local experts and their shows. Make sure you check out their Locked On shows of your favorite NHL team. They'll keep you updated all playoff long. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Shukri Wrights. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your teams every day. Enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs.